Welcome everybody. The topic is changing things up, keeping it lively and fresh. So once you've done distance healing more than a couple times, you sort of get into a little track, a little pattern. And what's nice about tracks and patterns is sometimes you can get into a flow state very easily because you've just done it so much and there's no resistance. So that's the positive part of repeating something over and over and over again, is that you relax and let things flow. There is a downside to that. So if you're here for the first time, you're very, very welcome, because your presence changes things up for us. Those of us who come here every week, we need the newness in order for it to maintain a liveliness. But let's just say we're doing a practice by ourselves, or there's just a group of us that are just here all the time. How do we change it up, personally in our own practice, so that the healing works better? So I'm going to describe how to do it in my Octave Resonance Healing Approach. So this is, so I use the Bengston Method when I do distance healing. So I have a list of about 20 items of things that I want, that I don't have, and I spin them around at various, very fast speeds, often in the back of my head, but sometimes other locations. There can be different numbers of cycles. Anyway, so I'm like an artist of this internal cycling method of healing. And one of the axioms of the Bengston Method is to avoid ritual, which is, said in other words, avoid doing the very same thing all the time. So sometimes rituals, they can be very, very powerful, right? So if you show up every day and brush your teeth, you would say that's a ritual, and then you probably don't have as many cavities, all right? What's another ritual that is really helpful? Like if you have a ritual of tucking your children in at night, every single night. You go and you read them a story, and maybe say their prayers, or I don't know, whatever you do that helps them go to sleep. And that's a ritual that you do every night. There's a stabilizing, grounding, rooting wonderfulness to that that's helpful. So why would Bengston say avoid ritual? And I think what he's saying, and I don't know, but I think what he's saying is avoid just mindlessly doing the same thing all the time. And how do you avoid getting into like a mindless place if you're doing something a lot? So like if you're trying to heal somebody, you're doing it all day long. Like how do you not make it a habit? All right. So, and I would suggest that the way you keep it fresh is that you embrace the habit part of it. So some of it just does become a habit. Like you know how to spin, you know how to cycle, it's not hard. You know how to do it while you're thinking, you know how to do it when you're walking. You just develop the skill, and you can turn it on, and you do it. So then how do you do it differently all the time if you're kind of sort of just doing it? And so I'm going to suggest two things. One is just to keep it, having a living relationship to it. So like say you were going out to eat with somebody, and you had every Thursday afternoon you had a meal with your friend. Like every Thursday, it was a ritual. Every Thursday you did it. And I can almost guarantee you that if you always talk about the same topics and always complain about the same things, that it will probably not be a very interesting thing. But if you always have new news, if you're always like, what about this, what about that, if you're wearing something different, if you order something different, this Thursday ritual can be a very lively thing. So see how I integrated the habit part of it with the change part of it? I actually think that you need both, because you need to relax and just spin. And you can't do that if you're like trying to manage it, because it's so new that you can't figure out how you're doing it. I mean, you can, but after a while you get so you can do it, and then what do you do? But you don't want to just assume that you're doing it and like, la, 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 I know how to do this, end of story. I don't have to do anything different ever again because I know how to do it. So let's just say that's you. Let's say you know how to do image cycling and you're at the stage of how do I change it up? So I'm just going to give you a framework, which is my Octave Resonance Healing Approach, which I can apply to anything. It's not a method. It's just a lens that you can look at anything through. You can look at your computer through it. You can look at the Bengston Method through it. You can look at cooking through it. It's a fourfold way of looking at anything. So the folds or the levels are physical, life force, emotions and images, and another name for that is astral, and then spiritual, and another name for that is higher vibrations. All right, so let's just think of how we could change up our healing practice in each of those things right now. So you're here, you either want healing or you want somebody to be healed. So let's start with the highest octave, the spiritual. So this higher octave is the octave of meaning. It's where your thoughts come from, and it's your thinking. It's your witness part of it. So I'm going to be quiet in a second. I'm going to be quiet, and I'd like you to think how you can shift your spiritual approach to today's healing session. Okay, so you might ask for a deeper meaning, like what is the meaning of my presence here today? And then you wait for an answer, and that would be the change that's the spiritual change that you did. You could say you don't usually pray while you're cycling. You could say, you know what, I'm going to ask for guidance so that I can cycle properly, so I can follow the instructions from Suzanne. So if you hadn't done that before, that would be an example of a thought that you thought that doesn't really change what you're doing, but you're just asking for guidance. Okay? What's another spiritual way to change things up? I'm just going to be quiet and you're going to do it, all right? So I'll be quiet for like 10 seconds and you're going to think, and if you can type in what you come up with, that'd be great. Okay, so what I got was to relax, to let go and let the process work. And so I'm curious if you thought of something. And if you did, type it in. If it's private, that's okay. But it'd be great to share it. Okay. So now let's go down a level to the astral level. The astral level is the level of imagination and emotions. So a way to change your imagination is to think a different picture. So lots of ways, there's infinite ways to change the pictures in your mind, right? So you could say, when Suzanne gets into that healing sanctuary, I'm going to have it be up in the mountains instead of out in the desert, or, I'm going to change its location and its appearance. So that's one way that you could change it. Another way to change it would be to open your heart emotionally to the possibility of healing in a deeper way. And that's something that you can just will. You can just say, I'm going to feel my openness to having a miracle happen today. And that's another way to change it up. So now I'm going to be quiet for a minute or 30 seconds or so. And I'd like you to ask what you can do with your emotions or your images that will change things up today or help you be present in a new way. Okay, I'll be quiet while you do that. Okay, good. And again, you can type this in later or now if you want to. I don't see a lot of typing happening, but anyway, it's just, you're welcome to share. All right, so now let's go down to the octave of life force. So the life force is like your chi, your sense of vitality. It's like the difference between a silk flower and an actual living flower. You know, they might both be beautiful, but one's living and one's not. So just feel your sense of life force. I feel like I'm an expert at this level because of my years and years and years as an acupuncturist, which is all about working with the life force to help heal. But just notice if there's something you can do with your life force. So a couple things you can do would be to go like this, get some static electricity, and just feel your energy field. Sometimes when you can feel that magnetic energy field, it sort of helps you be aware that you're alive in other places too. You can scratch or rub yourself and just feel how alive you are. Okay. And try to do that in a new way right now. So I'll be quiet while you sense your vitality and your chi in a new way. Okay, good. All right, so what I got was a little help from the astral as I saw a little border of roses around the names document. Which instead of just being this list of names with nice people on it, it just felt like my imagination had created some art around it, and now it's being held in a more loving picture. And that made my heart soften, and I felt like something started to flow in my body differently. Okay, so that's just an example of shifting the life force to make sure that we're not doing this as a blind ritual, as just a rote ritual. Okay, physical. What can we do that will change our physicalness that will help this healing happen? So one thing would be to move, which is kind of like life force. It's kind of hard to tell, but another thing would be to hydrate. I've got this water here. So that's like a physical thing coming into my body, changing it. All right. I could stand up and sit down, which I won't do because I'm on camera, but maybe you can do that. You can shift locations. If you're used to doing this in one room, you could do it in another. If you're used to sitting down for it, you could stand up, or vice versa. Just change something about your physicalness so that you show up here now in a fresh way. Okay. All right, so as you can see, the possibilities for change are endless. It's your creative input, but if you find yourself in a rut, get out of it. And you can use this octave, this fourfold approach if you want, or think of having a living connection to the deed. Because if something is alive, it's not dead. So you're not going to have a dead ritual. You're going to have a living ritual. It's going to be a generative exercise. Okay, good. All right, so if you're watching this on YouTube, we're going to go into the more private part of it, which is the distance healing, where people have submitted names. You're welcome to join us. If you join the Spirit Gate Cancer Support Facebook group, you don't have to have cancer to be on the list. And every Friday most Fridays we do this. Okay. All right, and those of you who are here on Facebook, whether you're watching it in person, like at the same time I'm recording it, or at a different time, thank you for being here. All right, breathe and